Committee meeting to order. I'd like to begin with declarations of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Mayor Daw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll declare an interest on item 11, which is the draft plan of condominium approval for the Caitlin Group. My daughter and her husband have purchased a unit in that building.
Thank you, Mayor Daw.
So when it comes up, I'd like it pulled for separate discussion so I can remove myself from the table.
I'm sure someone from council will ensure that that takes place. Thank you very much. Any other declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move to the approval of the agenda as amended. May I have someone move the amended agenda? Councillor Kim, Mayor Daw. Are there any comments or questions on the agenda as amended? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? That carries. We'll move to items or determination of items requiring separate discussion. I'll start on my right with Councillor Marakis.
Nothing just yet, Mr. Chair, but if you can come back to me.
No problem. Councillor Gardner, we're discussing which items would be pulled. Would you like me to come back to you?
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson?
Item 3 for the moment, and then I'll probably need a minute as well.
Okay. Councillor Abel?
Items 7 and 8, please. And I'll pull 9.
7, 8, and 9 for Councillor Abel. Mayor Daw?
Item 11, please.
Councillor Humphreys, we're pulling items.
And 14, just in case someone pulls it, which is heritage.
14.
Please, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. Councillor Kim?
Mine has been pulled, thank you.
Councillor Marakis, back to you.
Sorry, Mayor Daw, which one did you want pulled?
11 and 14. I did.
Oh, you did pull it?
11 and
Oh,
14,
okay.
thank you.
I'm good then. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Marakis. Councillor Gardner?
Could I have 17, please? And could you just read back the list?
I can. So we currently have items 3, 7, 8, 9, 11, 14, and 17 pulled.
Could I have 2 and 6, please?
2 and 6. Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Thompson? Excellent. So I'll read back what have been pulled. We have items number 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 14, and 17. Okay. So now we'll move to the adoption of items not requiring separate discussion. Can I have someone who would move that, please? Councillor Humphreys, seconded by Councillor Gardner. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. So we'll move to delegations. We have 4 delegations this evening. Each delegation will be 5 minutes in length. The first delegation we have this evening is Adam Marshall and Helen Aranis with respect to item 14. So I'd like to ask you guys to come forward. And just a reminder to state your name and address before beginning. And just another reminder that you have 5 minutes in length.
Sure. Appreciate it. Council, thank you. Mayor Daw, appreciate your time. We wanted to submit some extra information that wasn't Again, thank you to the council and Mayor Daw, appreciate your time. Our reason here tonight is to submit some more information that wasn't included in our historical evaluation. We had originally submitted it to planning. For some reason, it was not included in the report for the committee to address. So, has everybody received our...
Sir, sorry, I think some of the members of council are having trouble hearing you, so if you could just speak further to the microphone, that would be excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. So hopefully, has everyone received our letter and our copy of our engineer's report on our property? Because it's some information we wanted to have submitted to the council before they make their decision. For us, we brought this issue up when we were at the heritage evaluation. It was brought to our attention that they said they don't consider this information when doing the report. But if we actually look at their report, they do consider this. It's a physical condition right in the architectural section. For us, this is a major flaw for them making a decision without this type of information. So again, we want to make this clear for everybody so they can see it before the decision is made. For us, that's pretty much all we have to say. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. So we'll move then to, I need a motion to receive the delegation and refer to the item. Councillor Abel and Councillor Gartner. Any comments or questions for the delegates? Councillor Humphreys.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So I know I did read the letter that you sent. I appreciate it. So what is the one, like the most major issue? Is it the foundation that?
Actually, both, the foundation and the structural beams that actually hold the house up. Foundation's compromised and crumbled. If you look at the pictures, shows clearly what's going on. The actual beams themselves, because of time, they've sat and they become wet. And what happens is carpenter ants have infested it and removed the material from these beams. Now, all the structural beams that hold up the house run north and south. The east-west beams are gone. There's no way to save these without removing those walls. So what we're left with is one wall that can be fixed or saved. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. No. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And through you, Mr. Chair, if I could comment that obviously we love the history of Aurora, and the architecture of the homes are very special to us. And so we did get the report that shows that it's significant enough through the heritage analysis that we do, that the committee does. Let's say, I don't know, we're going to be discussing it this evening, if there's a decision to think about demolition, what is your plans for replacement in terms of architecture?
Our plan was we were going to use materials like Cape Cod siding, real wood, to match other houses in the home. The bricks we were going to pick actually resemble the actual original foundation. So, and then we had planned on changing the setback, making the garage a little further back. Other homes have been built with attached garages on our street and in the historical cultural district. Example of that is Catherine Street. It's being built at the moment. So it's one of those things that, we understand that there's homes in the neighborhood, but at the end of the day, we are building houses to modern day specs, right? So we're going to keep it in line with everything the neighbors have. So
I appreciate that. And just one last question, Mr. Chair, my apologies. How long have you lived there?
Helen herself, go ahead.
I've lived there. I've lived in Aurora for 25 years. I've lived at 41 Metcalfe for 20 years, and it was pretty beat up when I bought it. And it's when you say you can't judge his book by its cover, I've done my best to make it pretty, but I didn't know what the underlying issues were, other than I was afraid to go into the Jeffrey Dahmer dungeon because it's not pretty.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. A friend of mine lives on that street,
Yeah,
so I know what house you are speaking to. In fact, I think you may know them. But I appreciate you coming here this evening. It's a big decision for all of us to make. We respect very much the Heritage Committee and their perspective, but all things considered, we'll have to think about that. Thanks.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. I have Councillor Abel next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And actually, Councillor Humphreys more or less broached on my comment and concern. My question really was that as you have an appreciation that it's listed and you appreciate the heritage, I can see that, and we often are accompanied with a rendering of what the new site is going to look like to see, and that really puts a lot of direction, sort of, and I'm sure you're just, with the comments, you're receiving that, so I think that's probably the next stage.
We did submit a rendering to the historical council. So, and then I had met with Jeff Healy after the fact, and he said we had talked and had a good conversation about some of the aspects that they didn't like. So I was willing to adjust the plan a little bit to help work with it and make it easier for everyone involved. So,
That's great, and the best of luck.
thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. Are there anyone else with questions for the delegation? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of referring? Opposed? That carries. Thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
This will be discussed when we get to the item later on in the agenda. So we'll move then to the second delegation this evening, which is Michelle Boyer, a resident, with respect to item 9. Again, I'd just like to ask if you could state your name and address, and then also mention again that you have 5 minutes.
Great. So my name is Michelle Boyer, and I live at 6 Kerr Lane in Aurora, and I'm living in the 2B subdivision under item 9, under discussion today. So I've lived in Aurora for about 21 plus years, and I wanted to speak today to provide just a bit of a perspective on the green space, the forest, the trails, the public parkland, the gardens, and the playgrounds that service our various subdivisions based on the 3 different areas of Aurora that I've lived in over the past, again, 21 plus years, and how they compare in regard to where I now live, which is in 2B on 6 Kerr Lane. So when I moved to Aurora in '94, I lived on Willow Farm in the northwest quadrant of Aurora. And when I walked out of my door, in 2 minutes, I could be surrounded by trees, I could be walking on a path, I could be sitting on a park bench, listening to cardinals and blue jays, taking my kids down to the pond and feeding the ducks, going over to Tree Grove and playing on the park on the playground set there. If we wanted to, we could go over to Tom's Park through the pathways, and we could play hide and seek. We didn't have to hide behind a garbage can or a hydro box. We actually had trees and rocks and benches and things to do around that 2-acre parkland. We also used the Lakeview Trail system, and we walked over to Summit where we could play basketball and watch the kids play soccer, and my kids play soccer there. Lots of green space. We could walk in the middle of July and not die of heat because we had shade, right? We could also walk down to Copeland Park. It's a little bit longer for the kids, but we packed them into our wagons and we went down there and had picnics. If I wanted to walk with the ladies on Willow Farm and Tree Grove, we could go for 45 minutes in the shade in the park and again enjoy the parkland and the trees and the gardens that were planted by Aurora many years ago. 4 years ago, I moved and downsized off Willow Farm and moved on Henderson near the Case Woodlot. My kids were then teenagers, and Case Woodlot's 30 acres of woodland, trees, shade, places to sit in a park bench. No parks, but for teenagers, they don't need play sets. They need places to hang out, ride their bikes, walk, pick leaves in the fall, and maybe go to the park behind there and actually play in the fields, throw some baseballs around or football, do things that older kids would like to do. They'd also go up to Norman Weller Park or to Matchell Park. They could ride on their bikes. I wouldn't have to worry about them crossing busy streets like Bathurst or Yonge or Bayview. They'd be in the area that we lived, and they could go and do whatever they wanted. I could also meet the ladies up at Willow Farm and go through the paths and sit on park benches and listen to the birds. 4 years ago, I moved to 2B on 6 Kerr Lane, where I downsized. I wanted a newer home. I did look on the northwest and the southwest to move, but the houses were too old, and I didn't have it in me to replace windows, furnaces, and basically gut kitchens and bathrooms. So I wanted to move into a newer place, into 2B. So where I live now, when I walk 2 minutes out my front door, I'm on concrete, right? I can walk. If it's in July, I can't walk very long in my neighborhood because it's too hot. There's no shade, there's no trees, there's no park benches, there's no birds to listen to. I had one blue jay in my backyard in 4 years. No cardinals, because there's no places for those birds to hang out at. It's too hot. My kids don't want to go up to Ada Johnson because they complain it's just too hot. And this is 14 and 15-year-old girls. So listen, why don't you just go to Starbucks and get something to drink and then hang out at the park with your friends? It's too hot, Mom. It's too sunny. It's just, you can't go.
Ms. Boyer, excuse me, I'm just going to remind you that you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. So we have splash pads and we have playgrounds, great for the kids under 10. We have nothing for tweens, nothing for kids, nothing for old people. There's lots of multi-generational families in my subdivision. Old people can't walk 20 minutes over to 2C into a parkland or into a new path system. We have to stay in our subdivision. We need green space. We need parkland. We don't need more play sets. I agree with the consultants' work there, but we need green space, public parkland, a garden, a place for birds to hang out in. So we need some evergreens. Easy to do in that Maverick land. So, in conclusion, I truly hope we can make something of the Maverick lands that serve this subdivision just as we've served the other areas of Aurora that I've lived in. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Boyer. Thank you. May I have a motion from council to receive the delegation and refer to item 9, moved by Councilor Maracas and Councilor Abel. Question and comments for the delegate? Councilor Gardner?
Thank you very much for coming. I didn't realize that it was such a mixed area and that there were a lot of seniors in that area.
Yeah, there's a lot of, well, like I live there, right, and there's a lot of multi-generational families, so there's a lot of families where they're old folks, they buy the homes, and then their next generation, they have young families. So there's granny and grandpa looking after the kids while mom and dad work. And so I see a lot of old people, like elderly, walking. There's no place for them to sit down. And they don't want to be in a park with a bunch of play sets with loud kids. They want to have someplace they can sit and contemplate and enjoy nature. You can't do that in a subdivision, and they probably don't drive until until their kids come home from work.
Councilor Gardner?
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you very much for coming out.
Okay, thanks.
Your delegation will be referred to the item. So we'll move to Delegation C, which is Mr. Charlie Muscat. Am I pronouncing that right, I hope? Please state your name and address again for the record, and just a reminder, again, you have 5 minutes.
My name is Charlie Muscat. I live at 26 Kerr Lane, and I've been there since day one when they started building the subdivision. It's a long story how I came to that place. First of all, I have to say that at 16 years old, I had a diploma from Oxford University and never looked back. In 2006, I used to live on a custom-built home that I built myself, and I sold it in September. 3 days after I sold the house, I got sick. I was taken to South Lake, where I was held for 7 days. And after 7 days, I was sent home, 10 o'clock in the morning. 10 o'clock at night, I was back at the hospital. Dr. Dan Campbell was the surgeon on duty that night. And he said to my wife and to my sons, "Your husband, your father needs an immediate procedure, and the chances of him getting off the operation table alive is 0. So they did the operation. They put me in intensive care for about 5 or 7 days. I don't know how long it was. And I was in hospital till close to Christmas of 2006. Then he sent me home. And after 2 weeks, I was back in for another surgery. After the surgery, I had blood clots in my lungs, and I came through that. Now, the thing is, what I had was a big abscess on my pancreas, which is called acute pancreatitis, and it was bleeding, and I was septic. There was only one person before me to be able to tell the tale like I'm telling it to you today. I'm the second person. The chances were nil. So when I was sick, my wife had to take care of moving out, and we went to live with my sister-in-law. And we were there, and I was having the nurse come in every day and taking blood tests, etc., etc. And when I got well, after about enough to go out, I was going out with a real estate agent to look for a house. I went to Stouffville, I went to Schaumburg, I went to Newmarket, I went to Richmond Hill, you name it, we went through. And one day I was going by and I saw a sign, and I went in, and there was Mintos, 3 homes on Spring Farms. They were model homes. I went in, and I saw the house, and I liked it. called my wife. She says, I've seen a house. I says, yeah, where is it? She says, it's right there. I says, I just come from there and I like that one. She says, okay then. And we had some of our friends come have a look at it. And that's how we got the house on 26 Kerr Lane. We were the first ones to be there. And the thing that made a big difference was the brown spot that you see on the screen there, which says school or park. And I bet you I've been to the office, to the sales office about 30, 40 times, asking them, is it going to be a park, or you're just saying that just to sell the houses?
Sir, just a reminder, you have 1 minute remaining.
So this is one reason why we bought that house. Because of that, I could have got a bigger bang for my buck if I went to Newmarket. And the park is good because it's good for children, because they can go and play and learn new skills. It's good for the parents because they have a safe place where they can watch their children. And it's good for the elderly because they can go and walk and have some shade if there's trees and have a bench to sit down and relax. I am 72 years old now. I suffer from arthritis. I am diabetic because of what happened to me at South Lake, and I always have gone through 39 sessions of radiation for prostate cancer. And I feel that by having that park there, it's going to help me, it's going to help the elderly who would live in the subdivision, it's going to help the parents, and it's going to help the children. It's going to be a healthy environment for everybody.
Sir, I'd just like to ask you to conclude very shortly, if you might.
So I'm asking for your support to make sure that we are going to have a park there, green open spaces with trees and
Thank you very much for your delegation, sir. And thank you very much for coming out. May I have a motion to receive and refer this to item 9? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Marakis. Any questions or comments for the delegate? Councillor Humphreys.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you so much for coming this evening. It took courage to come here and tell your story, and congratulations on your miracle given by our amazing hospital. I think that's incredible. And I also appreciate getting the plan here where it absolutely states separate school board or park, and that's what you obviously purchased your home based on.
That was the reason.
Thanks.
It was the reason that made the big difference.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Anyone else with questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you very much for coming out. So we'll move to the final delegation for this evening, Delegation D, which is Catherine Collister, again for item 9. And Ms. Collister, again, I would just state that you state your name and address, and just another reminder, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Hello and good evening, esteemed members of council. My name is Catherine Collister. I live at 306 IVJ Crescent in Aurora, in 2B. I am here to speak on behalf of our community's most vulnerable citizens, a group that for the most part can't be here because it's too close to bedtime, or it's simply for the fact that they couldn't fill out this delegation form. Our children. I'm going to address a phenomenon so simple yet so important. It is referred to as the universal right of childhood, something so integral to the development of a child that it is included in the Article 31 of the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of a Child. The phenomenon I am speaking about is childhood play. Article 31 states, it is not only a right for children to be engaged in play, but it is also a matter of equal opportunity for all children. Maria Montessori, founder of the Montessori schools, states, play is the work of a child. It is the universal language spoken by all children. It is through play that children understand each other and make sense of the world around them. How important is play for children? Albert Einstein said, play is the highest form of research. Fact, the American Academy of Pediatrics states that childhood play is essential for helping children reach important social, emotional, and cognitive development milestones, as well as helping them manage stress and become resilient. But even setting all these facts aside, it is said that people rarely remember speeches about facts and statistics, and that people vividly remember speeches that are based on values. To that, I would urge Council to take the statistics and facts that you have heard over the last 2 to 3 weeks and wrap them in your values, in your experiences. Wrap them in your memories of your childhood when outdoor play was a rite of passage. Some of you will remember hide and seek, house, tag, Red Rover. Others may recall arguing about rules in kickball or stickball, or taking turns at jump rope, or creating imaginary worlds out of our forts. I would suggest that everybody in this room has taken part in this type of play and shared similar memories. From long summer days to a few precious after-school hours, child-organized play may have filled much of our free time. It takes a village to raise a child. We hear this all the time. But if we believe this to be true, then our children are in part Aurora's children, and Aurora's responsibility. Responsibility doesn't simply end by putting up a house. We have to provide an environment in which these children can grow and flourish. That environment must include parkland, green space, recreational space. Do we want Aurora's children to be able to create the same memories we experienced? Well, in order for them to do that, they first have to have a place to play. This is ultimately the purpose of the land on Mavernack Boulevard. This is a rare, precious parcel of land that will play a key role in our neighborhood. It'll contribute to the community's well-being and the well-being of Aurora's children. The same parcel of land that was represented, as we saw, as parkland and a school by the same developers that we originally bought our houses from and trusted. If you'll bear me this last indulgence, imagine for one moment you are standing on any corner, a corner in Aurora, and you close your eyes to listen. What do you hear? Is it the sounds of machines breaking ground in an already developed neighborhood to squeeze yet more unneeded homes on an empty parcel of land? After those homes are built, is it the sound of endless cars driving down the street because the traffic flow has increased so significantly?
Ma'am, you have 1 minute remaining.
Or is it the sound of children laughing and playing in the park, of recreational space that you helped create because you decided tonight that the work of Aurora's children was important? Thank you. Esteemed members of council, the decision lies in your hands.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Collister, for that. If you don't mind just coming back, yeah. No problem. Thank you again for coming out. And may I have a motion to receive the delegation and refer to item 9, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Maracas. Any questions or comments for the delegate? Seeing none, I'll call the vote then. All those in favor, proceed. Opposed? That carries. Thank you very much, and you may sit down now.
Thank you.
Okay, committee, that ends our delegations for this evening. We'll move to presentations by the advisory committee chairs. Do I have any presentations from any of the chairs of the advisory committees? I don't see any, so then we'll move forward then to considerations of items requiring separate discussions. So we'll begin by making maybe a recommendation. I see Councillor Abel might be making the same one. That is to move items 14 and 9 forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's exactly what I was thinking. Item 9 and then number 14.
9, then 14?
Yes. I'll
So
move that forward.
Moved by Councillor Abel, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Do we need comments on that? All those in favor of moving those forward? Opposed? That carries. So then we'll begin with item 9. So this one was pulled by Councillor Abel. Councillor Abel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if I want to move this in with the idea that we'll vote on them separately, or do I start by saying, as it is, I can't move it?
Mr. Clerk?
Thank you. Through Mr. Chair, while it's normal for someone to move the staff recommendation, it is always at committee's discretion to do otherwise, but that is the normal practice.
Then I can't move this as it is.
Will someone move this for discussion?
I'll move staff recommendation.
Mayor Daw, seconded by, for discussion, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Abel.
Thank you very
Floor is
much.
yours.
And it's just a moot point. I want to welcome everyone here. Obviously, something is important when we see families in our council chamber and on such an inclement evening. Welcome you all. This recommendation is, I will ask that we vote on the clauses separately. I would receive it, but my position has always been from the very start that we have a school parkland, and that's important. And if we had the town had the opportunity, which it did, thanks to some very involved citizens here, that we would make sure that it would remain a park. And I think it's fair to say that nothing has changed my mind. And I would like to make sure that we come back with options for consideration along the lines of a park from staff. And that's where I would like to see this motion go.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. I have Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Kim. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. And I'm not sure if council's in a position right now to make a slight amendment or if we have to vote on every clause that's on the motion before us. But on the second clause, or third clause, sorry, the council accept that staff recommendations that Block 208 not proceed as a fully developable parkland. At this time, for me personally, I'd like to see it as that we proceed as a fully developed parkland at this time, and that staff can report back on future uses from a municipal perspective in terms of parkland and recreational buildings. So,
is that an amendment, Councillor Humphreys?
yes, I'd like to put that amendment forward. I don't know if that's...
It's not in order. Mr. Clerk, would you comment?
Thank you. Through Mr. Chair, an amendment that proposes the contrary of what's on the floor is not in order, and you're suggesting that to go the exact opposite. So
yes.
The proper course would be to defeat that clause and then move it.
Okay, thanks.
Is that it, Councillor Humphreys? Okay, I have Councillor Kim next. Councillor Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, I can't support the staff recommendation to move this, to bring this back at another JC where they will come back with one of the three, with those three options, which is park and recreational space, school, or just residential use only. I mean, for myself, I'm totally in support of the first alternative recommendation, which is to designate the entire block as parkland and request staff to proceed with the design and the development process. And just to talk out loud and give everyone my thoughts in terms of how I worked this out, because it was a difficult process for me, because I like to think that to be objective and look at the big picture. And I know we live in a country where we're a compassionate society, and we have equalization payments to certain provinces to kind of even things out. And that's, in essence, when the cash in lieu came about in 1973 in the Planning Act, is to ensure that there's parkland for everyone to enjoy, and for those areas that don't have sufficient, then the cash in lieu is used for that purpose. But when I look at that argument in this situation, if we were to use the funds from the cash in lieu from this area, which is quoted here as roughly 2.8 million from the residents, we've done this before, and purchased the Armory and in other parts of town. And I'm not sure how I enjoy the Armory, at least, well, when it opens, I'm sure I'll enjoy it. But I'm sure there's some who don't. We may not enjoy that particular purchase using cash in lieu, and certainly using the cash in lieu to purchase parkland and another part of Aurora that's underserviced. When you go into the older neighborhoods that were built prior to '73 or even around that area, there's no parkland to purchase in any event. And so, the option here is to use the funds to help towards a larger community or a rec center. And the utility that some residents may have that who are underserviced, they may not get the same utility from a rec or a recreation or a large community center than as it's hard to compare that with the utility that the residents along Mavernack will gain from this parkland. So it's, the cash in lieu argument, I'm not totally, I don't think that totally applies here, and I think the cash in lieu that came out of the community should go back into this lot. I think one of the options that was laid out is in terms of potentially looking for another school to build upon that. I think there's a big, it's not just an optics issue, but there's a trust issue between residents and the town in terms of buying this land and selling it off to another school when there was an opportunity here to build something even better for the residents. So I have an issue there, and even the option of potentially selling off, 1 or 2 acres to help pay for potentially what could go on it, which will cost, I think a quote was $250,000 per tennis court. So you're looking at whatever it's going to go on, it's going to be well over $1 million. And the option of potentially selling out pieces of it, the consultant has already indicated that this is an awkward piece of land to make into park space because it's bordered on 3 sides by residents. And so it's not the usual park. And so if you were to put in more residential housing, then it would make it even further away from what a park should look like. And so for those reasons, I can't support the staff recommendation to put this off and come back with alternative options. I would like this to be a green space in a park. And certainly the residents here have waited many years. And I know that this is the second time residents have come with their children, and to have this go back for another several months and have another 2 or 3 meetings on this, I don't think that that's something that I would like residents to bear. Just one other point is that this is not just for 500, 600 people, but this parkland, and I don't anticipate it necessarily being passive or passive land. And I hope that it's hard to not broach this topic without indicating what could go on it. But this land, whatever it turns out to be, is going to be servicing potentially 8,000 people in 2B, and then you have about 8,000 to 10,000 in 2C. So potentially in that larger northeast subdivision, you're looking at potential tennis courts or soccer fields that could service a good chunk of Aurora's population, maybe 25, 30%. And sorry, one last point is that we don't know how long the Magna lands are going to be available for in order for us to use for soccer pitches. This would be a perfect area, if the residents decided to go that way, to put in 3 soccer pitches and tennis courts or whatever they want to put on it. So for all the reasons I've indicated, I would like the alternative recommendation, which is number 1, and cannot support the staff recommendation at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. I'll move to Councillor Marakis, then Councillor Thompson, and then Mayor Daw. Councillor Marakis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to make the suggestion. I can't support what's in front of us either, and it just seems like that's kind of where we're going here. So, I think that maybe we should just, unless Councillor Thompson and the mayor absolutely want to speak at this moment, I would just, maybe we should just vote on this, and then that way we can move forward with the amendment at that time, and then we can have discussions after that. It just seems like we're all pretty much kind of in the same thought pattern.
Thank you, Councillor Marakis. I think I'll afford the councillor's courtesy of speaking, but I appreciate the suggestion. So we'll move to Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's been a very long journey. This began in 2013 because of a notice of motion brought forward by Councillor Gallo, and 2.5 years later, we're finally starting to talk about, what can we do with the property? And I think that's the better discussion. I know many of the residents in the area, they heard that we acquired it almost a year ago, and still, it's not accessible to them. And I'd like to see us start moving the conversation more to what we can do for the benefit of the neighborhood and the community, rather than discussions around what we could get for it if we were to sell it. And so, similar to comments around the table, I'm not in support of selling this piece off. I'd rather look at ways in which we can make it benefit the community as a whole.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I have Mayor Daw and Councillor Gardner next. Mayor Daw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do support the staff recommendation, and the reason I support the staff recommendation is we also have the master plan that Mr. Downey and the consultants have been working on for quite a while. We haven't even discussed that. And we're already going outside what may or may not be in that document. So we haven't even given the courtesy to look at the staff report with respect to the new master plan before we start talking about this. A couple of other comments I'd like to make. First of all, we seem to be being portrayed as the bad guys on the disposition of this land when it was the school board. And I've never seen the school board held accountable for their decision, which I find very annoying, to be frank. We talked a bit about cash in lieu. Cash in lieu should not be considered territorial. So I don't think it's appropriate to say that the cash in lieu, that housing in this particular area contributed to the pot has to go back into that area. That's not the concept of how the town works. Certainly not my understanding of how it works. So I do not accept that cash in lieu is territorial. I think it has to be looked at as in our job, in my opinion, because we are at large, not ward-based. And maybe this is a time to bring up a different discussion at some point. But I think that we have to look at it in terms of the entire town. I've lived here for quite a while, and the three houses that we had, the parks in those areas were all farther than what we're talking about here. So, so it's not, and indeed the last Parks and Recreation Master Plan did state, excuse me, that this area was not underserved. Other areas of town were underserved. I mean, that's I guess a matter of opinion. It also needs to be pointed out that in the 2C area that's being developed right now, there's the wildlife park itself is well over 170 acres of land that's going to be park-based. So, and that's just on the I guess the east side of IBJ, where it goes in the back. It's interesting. One delegate was looking for quiet space without having, if I followed correctly, no kids, just some place with benches and trees and things like that. And another one said it would be a great place to take kids. So I think that even within the area itself, there's some discussion as to what would be best in that particular area. And I think that's all I had to say. I do believe that we should give staff the courtesy of looking at the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Goodness gracious, we took 17 years to come to a decision on what to do with the youth center. We're finally looking at what to do with Library Square 16 years after a decision should have been made. So while I appreciate that the decision to purchase this land came up and happened, actually we just acquired the land last summer, I believe, if I'm correct. So summer of 2015. So we really haven't owned it that long to say that we're taking too much time to do it. So again, I would much prefer going with the staff recommendation. That's not to say that I'm in favor of selling it. It's not to say I'm in favor of keeping it. It's to say I'm in favor of looking at staff's recommendation as to how best serve the entire town. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. I have Councillor Gardner next. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Going to the report, excuse me, page 3 and page 4, there are a couple of things that need to be clarified there. In speaking about the 2010 Parks and Rec Master Plan, I was part of that committee. I was on the council at the time and approved that plan. And it says here that there were no gaps in parkland in the 2B area. And you know why? Because there was going to be a school with a park there. So the situation has changed. And of course, the Parks and Rec Master Plan 2010 couldn't have known that. With respect to the Parks and Rec Master Plan, again, something that I never thought of but was brought to my attention tonight, the Parks and Rec Master Plan talks about parks within a certain radius or a certain walking time for people. You know what? We never considered the older part of our population. So maybe maybe that information, those parameters aren't correct. And I'm not sure if we ever considered parents with toddlers walking to parks. So I think our Parks and Rec Master Plan needs to look at that. with respect to cash in lieu, and I'm sure staff can go back and look at the records from the council meetings of the late 1900s. That's wrong. 1990s. Sorry. From the 1990s, and you will see that the only reason that cash in parkland was allowed to be taken from this area was because there were going to be 3 parks in this area, and one of them was going to be attached to a school. So if we are to use cash in lieu of parkland for this park, well, it is fitting, because we are now minus one of those parks, and the cash in lieu needs to go back to replace that park. Last comment is with respect to the wildlife park. I don't know if everybody's aware of the wildlife park. It's going to be just east of your area. That wildlife park is there to protect wildlife. It is not there in any way to be used as a regular public park. It's going to be very limited as to where people can walk, where people can stand, where people can watch the wildlife. We are not going to be running around that park. It couldn't even be considered passive parkland as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Councillor Gartner. Any more speakers on this item? Councillor Thompson? Oh, sorry, Councillor Marakis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know I wanted to get to the vote quickly, but I just wanted to clear up a couple of points. As far as, I know it's mentioned in the report that the area is overserviced, and I'm just wondering why. When I look at the other areas within town, I look between Yonge and Bayview and Wellington and St. John's, and it shows that it's pretty much overserviced. It shows the overlapping. So I'm just wondering if staff at some point would be recommending for us to look and advocating for us to sell off some of those properties to get money. I mean, if we're looking at one area, we might as well look at others. And that's not to say that I'm advocating for us to do that. I'm just wondering why we're only looking at this one specific area when we are overserviced in other different areas of the town. To me, at the end of the day, it's the 9 of us that make the decisions, not the consultants. And from what I'm hearing is we want this green space, the residents want this green space. We bought it for municipal purposes, so therefore that's what we should do.
Thank you very much, Councillor Marakis. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll move to Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know what it really essentially boils down to? You know, I've thought long and hard about having staff go back and potentially think about what else could be optioned from the land, but in the end, it really boils down to it's going to be 100% residential or 100% parkland, because anything in between really can't fit because of the explanation I just stated earlier, which is it's bordered by three sides of homes. And so given the 2 choices, it seems that the parkland would be the only fitting choice. And with respect to the Parks and Rec Master Plan, recommendation 19 is to continue to work with educational, industrial, and other suitable partners to provide rectangular sports fields. And certainly this land would be a fitting area. And recommendation number 21 states construct 2 additional outdoor tennis courts, preferably located in the northeast, to bolster geographic access across the town. So I believe Maverick is northeast, so I think it fits 2 recommendations right on the Parks and Rec plan. So, you know, it doesn't really make this a very difficult decision then. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. I'll move to Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I don't have much else to add. I just, just for clarification, I mean, cash in lieu is an interesting concept, and while I agree that it shouldn't be the determining factor in any of our decision, it is something that we need to take into consideration. The Planning Act says that 5% should go to the town for developable acreage for parkland, and so Minto had 100 acres, and so they owed us 5. We chose. The council that they chose at that time not to take those 5 acres, but instead to take cash in lieu, and that ended up being the $2.8 million. The other developers of TUB, we ended up with Ada Johnson, and Hickson as well, and so we took a different route. But you could argue that if you started over, we would have taken the 5 acres. And so, yeah, this property we're looking at is 6 acres, but it's not the sole determining factor, but it certainly is a factor in the decision about what we want to do with this property.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gardner?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to ask Mr. Downey if he had a map that we could put on the overhead.
Mr. Downey?
Sorry, a map of the 2Bs. The rest, somebody, well, I wanted the map, Mr. Downey, with the parks on it. I think it's
Could we just have that
the wrong way
rotated,
around.
perhaps? Fabulous, thank you. Councillor Gardner?
I don't know, this looks like, is this east of Bayview? Okay, I was actually looking at the map that we have on page 55. It shows the whole 2B area. And in the whole 2B area, would you have that one through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Downey?
This is it, Councillor Gardner.
Oh, no, she's talking.
Is there a separate map, Councillor Maracus?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, the one on page 5, I believe, page 55, which has, it shows the whole town,
Page
55 of the report.
53, you mean?
Do you mean I think he means the park. Just put this on the overhead?
Do you mean on the Parks and Rec master plan?
Yes, on the Parks and Rec master plan. See, it's in the attachment for the report. I don't, sorry, I'm giving you the wrong number because I'm looking at the actual plan, so therefore I'm saying, that's why I'm saying page 55, so I apologize.
Okay.
Well, actually, it's fine. If you look at the parkland in the 2B land, so that is east and west of Bayview. If you look at the area west of Bayview, there's a lot of parks. If you look at the area east of Bayview, there's only 2 parks. So maybe the entire 2Bs, maybe someone could say that there was enough parkland. But if you look at the area east of Bayview, there's just 2 parks, and as was noted last week or the week before, those are not neighborhood parks, those are community parks. People are coming in from all over the community to use the skateboard park and the water park. So honestly, I don't know how anybody could say that this area is fully serviced or over-serviced.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Humphreys, for a second time.
Yeah, thank you. Through Mr. Chair, just 2 things, just as, no, maybe I won't go there. In terms of voting, I think this is where we're going. Do we have to go through the defeat process or go for or in favor process, or can we actually move the motion to go with option 1 right away? Just want a clarification.
Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. Through Mr. Chair, alternate 1 or option 1 is contrary to the last 2 clauses of the main motion that are currently on the floor.
So therefore, I think if that was the way forward, it would have to be defeated and then put on the floor. So, anyone else? Doesn't look like. Could you put just the item back on the floor or on the screen, please? Thank you very much. So, Mr. Clerk, you advise Councillor Abel, if you might.
Thank you, Mr.
Before I
Chair.
continue.
And I just wanted to say that when we brought this up in 2012, that if this land ever became available, that if the town could exercise its option, that it would.
Excuse me, the mic is on.
Maybe someone turned it down. Thank you. I think what I was just saying, the desire of council all along was if this land became available, that they would be able to purchase it. And the reason is that it wouldn't go to development. To maintain the plan of a park, and the schoolyards are always used for that. And I just don't know why the master plan for Parks and Rec is telling us why or what to do with land that we own. Why this one piece? Because we have land everywhere. So I really had trouble with why this is before us. When I think it was our wish all along to explore moving it as a park, and that's been said over and over again. So Let's defeat this, and my comment, let's defeat this. And Councillor Humphreys has brought up moving forward option 1, and I think that's where we all want to go. So that's my comment.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you. And before moving to the vote, I'd like to make my comments on this, and I'll be brief as much of it has been said. And I don't support the staff recommendation. I do support it as parkland. So having said all that, again, I said it'd be brief. I will call the vote. And the clerk has spoken to me that perhaps, as Councillor Abel asked for the items to be separated, that we perhaps vote on items 3 and 4 first. And then an amendment would be in order if those clauses happen to be defeated. So that's what I will do. I will call clause 3 and 4. Councillor, do you want them separate to each other or just lumped together?
I don't mind, but I'm looking at 3. I think the one that we want to identify is the second clause, is it not? That council receive the following recommendation, number 31?
I'll go to the clerk for comment.
So it's number 2 that we would...
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, that first one merely is to receive the recommendation. It's not endorsing a recommendation or taking any action on the recommendation. The last 2 clauses effectively act upon that recommendation. So that would be my recommendation, is that we deal with those last 2 clauses.
So if I can clarify for everyone, the first 2 are to receive for information. The third and the fourth are action clauses. So that's why the clerk recommended that they be moved. Councillor Humphreys, you have a question of clarification?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, my apologies. I'm just a little concerned that we're going to do this separately, and then if it doesn't pass, we go to option 1. What's it going to do to the motion in the last 2 clauses? Is this going to work out? I just don't want us to kind of fool around with this. Do we do it all at once, vote at once? Do we have to do this separately?
Mr. Clerk, I'll go to you for clarification on that.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Since the first clause is merely to receive the report, the second clause is merely just to receive the recommendation from the consultant. However, certainly council is under no obligation to receive the recommendation. If you just want to vote on those last 3 clauses as one, and then it's...
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So why don't we do that? I will call the vote right now on clauses 2, 3, and 4. And then with whatever happens with that vote, we can move forward at that moment in time. So council or committee on clauses 2, 3, and 4, all those in favor? Those opposed? That fails. Is there an amendment that someone would like to put on the floor? I'm going to go to Councillor Humphreys on this one. She had her hand up first.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, if I can move option 1.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Marakis. Comments or questions on alternative 1? Councillor Humphreys.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and just as an opportunity, I do want to say very quickly that this was highlighted by Councillor Gallo in last term. He did catch the fact that we had first right of refusal, and we purchased this property for a very incredibly good price. We got it for almost what 1 acre equals to in our town. So I want to say thank you to Councillor Gallo and to the council that continue to listen to the residents. I want to thank the residents for your passion. I know I would do the same if I was living in your backyard or if that was in my backyard, so, and I think I have. So I just want to say thank you very much, and looking forward to seeing what can happen in this area.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering if we can sort of amend a similar clause that we see before us in item 4, whereby we put a date on a report back to council on potential uses for the site. As we indicated earlier, we purchased it in the summer of 2015. It would be nice if we, try to expedite this process as much as possible so that the residents can use this park in the summer/fall for something.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Just while we sort this out, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
I know in 2013 there were concept drawings drawn up specifically for this block. Maybe we could start with those documents being brought out and start having those conversations on what it's going to look like, what are we going to do, engage the residents, get people involved. But if we can I'll put forward an amendment that staff prepare a report to council on potential uses of block 208 by May 3rd, 2016.
Okay, just for clarification, I was just speaking with the clerk. This is an amendment to the amendment.
Okay, I'll wait until after the amendment, and then I'll put it on the floor. Thank you.
Well, I mean, it's
No, you're
fine.
fine?
It's fine now, so move the amendment to the amendment.
That's fine then.
Is there a
We'll do it.
seconder? Councillor Abel? Are there any comments or questions to the amendment to the amendment? Councillor Abel?
I'm wondering if I can amend the amendment to the amendment.
I thought this was going to be a short evening for me.
We had asked in last year that the fence be removed, and I'm just wondering through you, Mr. Chair, has that fence been removed?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe it has. I could be, well, obviously I'm wrong. We know we went and inspected the property. We noticed some encroachments into the property. We made sure that it was safe, but it has not been put in a condition where we are recommending public access.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. Councillor
Well,
Abel?
I do believe we had talked at the time, the same discussion, and it was agreed that council direct staff to remove the fence. Put a sign there letting the residents know that this is now being considered for parkland, that we have some sort of ownership.
Councillor Abel, may I suggest that we vote on the amendment to the amendment, then we vote on the amendment, and then when it's back to the main motion, we can maybe have further comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So voting on the amendment to the amendment, that is Councillor Thompson's amendment to the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk. So we're back to the amendment as amended. It's never this difficult, folks, I swear. Okay, Councillor Abel, to the amendment as amended.
Thank you. I'm just looking at page 2, and it refers to the background. On September 15th, council approved the following. And the very last line says, be it further resolved that staff be directed to investigate, report back to council on options to remove the fence. So does a year and a half seem like enough time to get that report back? I think that's really my question.
Is that rhetorical, Councillor Abel, or?
I mean, I think it's reasonable to ask that we bring something forward right away, because it's been a year and a half. Or should I ask through you, Mr. Chair, how the progress on that is coming on that report?
Thank you, Councillor Abel. Any more speakers to the amendment as amended? We have Councillor Marakis, Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Councillor Abel fully on that. It's been quite long. I thought that fence would have been down, but right after where the motion speaks, it says that staff will be preparing another follow-up to deal more completely with this motion. So I guess it would be my understanding that maybe this report is possibly ready and staff was just waiting to see what the outcome would be of tonight before they brought us anything back. So hopefully, I'd like to hopefully maybe, within the next meeting or two, we would have something in front of us, hopefully.
Thank you, Councillor Marakis. Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think just quickly regarding the fence being removed, I just want to make sure that before if we do open up the fence, that there's no rusty nails and, old construction equipment, and I'm sure people use it from time to time when I see some garbage and stuff like that. So hopefully that will be looked after before any such move happens. And also, before the staff comes back with recommendations before the May 2016 date, would it be prudent to have a community consultation like we do with other projects of this size so that staff can have feedback as to what the residents desire for the property?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that would be our normal development process. However, if you wish to have a report back by the 2nd of May, I would suggest that that probably isn't going to be able to take place. We do have some preliminary thoughts about what we could put on the park. However, we have not discussed that at all with the public. If we called a public meeting, we normally have to give some notice, give an opportunity to provide some comment, then prepare a report and present it to council, and that wouldn't be able to be done by the 2nd of May.
Councillor Kim?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Downey, then when would be the earliest date that you can come back with recommendations after a consultation with the neighborhood?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the normal process with regards to moving forward with the development of park is for council to identify some budget with regards to how we would like to move forward. Staff would be preparing a report to council, giving you some indication of what could potentially go on the park and some costs associated with those. With that, we would then get approval for a budget that we would then move forward with community consultation, stating that council has identified or funding for the development of the park. We would be presenting concepts to the public for their comment, making any revisions that we felt were appropriate based on those comments. If it had an impact on the budget, we would come back with any impacts, any budgetary impacts. If not, we would then be proceeding to design drawings and calling a tender for the construction of the park. We would then be reporting back to council with the findings of that tender or the results of that tender and commencing construction of the park. So that's the normal development process with regards to the development of a park.
Councillor Kim?
So then lastly, just so that we don't lose momentum here, for administrative reasons, can this come back just for council to discuss a budget for this property in terms of the maximum budget? Bring it back to you, and you can come back with 3 or 4 scenarios by the May 2nd date or end of May, whatever date works for you, and then proceed to have a community consultation subsequent to that.
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have no objection to that. That would mean that we would move forward with our thoughts with regards to how the park might proceed and giving you some cost estimates associated with that design, looking for council approval of capital budget for 2016.
Councillor Kim?
Great, thank you.
And Mr. Clerk, what Mr. Downey just said is in order with with the amendment as amended? Mr. Clerk?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, the report, the director would be directed to report back by May 3rd. That doesn't preclude him from reporting back earlier.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Anyone on the amendment as amended for the first time? Seeing none, I'll move to Councillor Thompson for the second time. Councillor Thompson.
You know, I agree with Mr. Downey's comments that, 60 days is not enough time to have a final decision on the property, but that's not what I'm looking for. But similar to what's been said around the table, really, it's to continue to move this issue forward. The report will probably, in my eyes, show some of the concept drawings that we had previously, but more importantly, perhaps it'll help alleviate the issue of using the space for the time being, the removal of the fence, the cleanup. Maybe it's a community project to help clean it up, whatever the idea is, but let's get the ball rolling, have the timelines, start to outline the process in terms of, how we're going to move forward with a decision. It's a project. And so let's have some clear, definable milestones and goals so that the community knows, what's going to happen. Is it going to be active? Is it going to be passive? How can they get involved? All that kind of information can come back to us for May 3rd, and minimally, it's just to be able to, make that space accessible to everybody while we work out what exactly it's going to look like, what's the cost, where's the funding. But, as Councillor Kim said, let's move this forward. Let's put some clear timelines on getting this done.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Any further comments to the amendment as amended? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries, Mr. Clerk. Back to the main motion as amended. No further speakers on that. Calling the vote then. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll move forward then to item 14, which is the Heritage Advisory Committee meeting minutes of February 8th, 2016. Perhaps if members of the audience would like to stay, they're more than welcome. If those members would like to yeah, and this is committee. The recommendations will go to council next week for ratification, but you're welcome to leave, and we'll take about a 5-minute recess. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Thompson.